I'm going to do a quick introduction using the web. So this is me. My name is Nir. I'm a Google developer expert for Angular. If you want to know a lot of other things about me, you can check out this very simple website called nir.life, where I'm going to put a lot of stuff about me, but currently it's where I'm going and what I'm doing. My day job is at a company called 500 Tech, where we help companies to build front end. So I'm in the front end business for the past, I think, 10 years, maybe more. With this company for the past 6 years. What else? I'm also the organizer of another meetup group called AngularNYC. If you want, I don't know, just to open your mind to other technologies, that's always a fun thing to do. So you can find me there. Usually not as Nir. This is how it look like during the meetups. Or Sergeant JSX. So if you want, my next Angular conference is going to be in Poland in November. If someone finds this interesting, come talk with me. I might have some discounts for you, maybe a free ticket. So if someone wants to go to a nice, warm vacation on frozen Poland in November, this is one of the, if not the biggest Angular conference in Central Europe. So if it's relevant for someone, talk with me and let's see what we can do about it. Sounds good? So that's enough about me. Now let's talk about code. Who built an Angular library sometime? I don't know. So 3, 4 people, 5 people. All right. So most of you, that's going to be pretty much the first time that you encounter the process. And so, I mean, that's going to be the plan. We're going to start from scratch. We're going to do like a fresh npm install, like I like to do. And we're going to build, hopefully, a tiny Angular library. And along the way, we're going to learn a lot of stuff. Now, I talked a lot about Angular on the past years. So it's very hard to bring something new. So if that's okay with you, we're gonna do this talk very we're gonna do a very dynamic talk. So when I'm introducing a concept, I'm gonna ask you if who learned something new about it, and then I get a nice feedback, and then I know if I should go deeper or just take a step back. Sounds good? Cool. So what's gonna happen if I'm gonna open the terminal, go to my desktop, and do an ng-new, let's give a name for our library. Let's call it, I don't know, that's the hardest part. Which one? NG what? Near Public Library. Near Public Library. Sounds good. All right, we're going to call it a magic strings. Strings, yeah. Now what's going to happen if I'm going to hit enter? A new Angular app, which is, that's not what I want to do. How many of you familiar with this? Create application equals false. Who familiar with this? Good. So we just learned something new. If you run this command with Angular, I don't care about Angular routing, I want to use CSS. If you run the Angular CLI, by default, it's going to create for you an Angular app. But if you run it by setting the create application to false, you're going to get a workspace, which means, you're going to see in a second. Let's open it up. Desktop, magic strings, yeah. Right? So by default, I've got a project which got nothing. It's empty. No apps at all, which is a good thing. This is exactly what I want, because now I'm going to create 2 different kind of apps. I'm going to create a library, which is different from creating an app, and I'm going to create an regular Angular application to be able to test my library. So if you generate a workspace, even if you're not going to build libraries, that's a great practice if you got several apps that you want to build, but you want to share the same resources. So you can use the same project, one node modules, technically, to create multiple apps without duplicating and creating multiple projects. That's a great thing. So let's create a library. I'm going to hit the, can you see it? Yeah. All right. Let's do ng generate library, and we call this library magic strings, and I'm going to use the prefix. Let's my name initials. Now the prefix is very important because who used the prefix flag before? Not too many people. The prefix gonna override the default, and instead of generating components with the ng prefix, you're just gonna use whatever prefix you're gonna give it. So it doesn't matter if you're gonna create a library or an app. It's considered to be a good practice to, if you just start an app, give it a unique prefix, and then you don't need to see this app / whatever you build everywhere. Sounds good? I'm gonna hit enter. And now I'm going to generate a real project. That's the reason it's taking a little bit more time, because we're actually downloading all the node modules that we need in order to create a library, which is not an app. So now under projects, I've got a magic string, and the folder structure is a little bit different. As you can see, there is the public API, which is going to expose everything that my library should expose, the actual classes. There is the sleep folder. And here I've got a standard Angular module. And if you take a look at my magic string components, you can see the MK prefix. So by creating an ng-new library instead of ng-new, ng-generate library, instead of just ng-generate module, for example, you're going to create an app. You're going to create a folder called projects. And like I said before, let's say that you don't want to create a library, although I think that even if you just create an app, that's a great architecture to build an app and a bunch of libraries. It keeps your code very separated and gives you a lot of advantages, but that's a different topic. Another interesting thing to see, inside of magic string package.json, all right? It looks like a very minimized version of package.json. There is not too much dependencies because this is a library. So I don't need to depend on everything. Basically, if I'm building a pure Angular library, all I need is Angular Common and Angular Core as pure dependencies. So if you're going to use it in your app, I'm not going to reinstall if that exists. Make sense? Another thing that you should know about this generate library, if you go to your main package.json, which is the package.json that exists at the root of this workspace, right here. When you create a library, let's find it. Where is it? Here it is. You see this? So the Angular CLI gonna install a node module called ng packager. It's still a very popular node module. It's basically become the de facto node module for packaging libraries. But you're going to get everything for free because that's the Angular CLI, and that's why we like it. Cool? Ready for the next step? Let's see if I remember what I need to do. All right. Next, now I'm going to do ng generate application, and we call this application magic strings example. Yeah, all right, cool. I don't want the Angular router, I want to use CSS. And what's going to happen right now, that's the default. If you don't use the create application false, that's the regular Angular application that we all familiar with. But now under projects, you've got magic string, which is a library, and magic string example, which is a regular Angular app with everything you know and familiar with. So for example, if I'm a company or a startup or just working by myself and want to create another Angular app, I can just run this command again. So you get a project library and a multiple Angular projects which share the same resources. Easy, great to maintain and fun to work with. All right, next. How do I run this whole thing? So to run my app, we use ngserve. But because we are inside of this project library, this old structure, which we call an Angular workspace, if I'm just gonna hit ngserve, what I'm gonna serve? Which app? I mean, I can't serve the library. It's just a library. You know, I don't bootstrap this library. I don't have any entry components. That's not the same configuration. But anyway, if I get multiple apps, I can just do this, ngserve, and the name of which app I want to serve. So I want to serve the magic strings example. Yeah? Thank you. I mean, you know what's going to happen. If I had another app, I can just use the ngserve with the name of the other app. Let's go to localhost 4000 and a simple Angular app. Cool. Now we want to do a test run on our library. Let's have a look inside of the library folder. So we've got this first module, the magic string module, and we've got this magic string component, which just gonna render magic string works. What else? We've got a magic string. We've got a magic string service right here, which doesn't need to be included in the module anymore. That's considered to be the best practice. If you're not familiar with using provided in, that's the new way to declare services, which gonna serve as singletons. So instead of going to providers and put it on the module, we use the provided in. Just got something out of scroll to source. Yeah. So if I want to use this library inside of my example app, first I need to build this library. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come here to my terminal, and I'm going to run ng build and the name of my library, which is magic strings. Where? String, not strings? Magic string? Yeah. You sure? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just checking. So look what happened. We run the build command, and now under dist, we've got our library built, which is kind of interesting because we've got bundles and we've got modules which is compatible to ES5, and we've got basically almost every format that you expect, so you can import this library in different ways, using ES6 modules, using required, whatever you want. But now it's going to be even more interesting because I'm going to go to my example, to my app module. Here I want to test my magic string library. So I'm going to import my magic string library, but I'm going to import it like it was a regular Node module. That's very important, because otherwise, if you let the auto import kicks in, you might accidentally import this library from the actual source code, because that's the same project, and that's not what we want to do. We want to check the build. So here I'm going to type magic string. From there, I'm going to take the magic string module, which I'm going to include inside my module. Magic string module. And inside my app component, let's get rid of this template HTML and keep it simple. And here, I can go ahead straight away and use my NK magic string. Like you see, one of the things that I really like about this IDE is it's got a built-in integration with Angular, so I've got a code completion for my component, which was created. You can experience it with me, that it's worked. This IDE works with me and not against me. Not that I got anything bad to say about other IDEs. This one of the strengths of Webstone. Cool. Going back to my project, Let's refresh, and because I accidentally stopped the ngserve, we can't see anything. So let's ngserve magic string example, which now include the magic string module that was imported like it was a regular node module, and hopefully we've got the magic string works. Cool? Easy as that. So right now we've got a setup that enable me to work on my library. For example, I don't care about the example project anymore. I'm going to go straight to my library. I'm going to go to my magic string component. I'm going to change something here. And the thing is that every time you're doing a change, you have to rebuild. That's the thing. So every time I'm going to have to rebuild, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a shortcut for me. I'm going to go to my package.json, and let's call it lib build. And I'm going to run ng build magic string. Cool? Now it's going to be easier for me to go ahead and just run a lib build instead of just rerunning the same thing again and again and again. So let's give it a try. npm run lib build. I'm rebuilding my library. My example app should refresh automatically, and now I can see the change. So this was part one. How do you set up a project? All right, let's summarize. If you run Angular CLI engine U, but instead of letting it do its thing, using this flag create application false, you're going to get an Angular workspace. In this workspace, you can create multiple applications which ng-generate application, or you can create libraries with ng-generate libraries. You're going to end up with one node modules for every application or library you're going to build. You're going to end up with separate libraries for separate directories for libraries and apps, which you can serve, which ng-serve the name of your app, or build with ng-build the name of the library. It's very popular those days when I'm building a large and complex system to build an app and almost extract every feature to its own library. Not because I want to reuse it, maybe I want to reuse it, but that's not the main point, because it keeps everything separated and testable and a lot of other advantages. Any questions? I've got time for quick question. Yeah, you please. Yeah. Every time the question was, do you have to rebuild every time you update the library? Yes. The good news is that, it's not that bad. Just run a command, and you've got the example app refresh. You don't need to restart your example app. Sounds good? Ready for the next step. So let's build something. So I promised you that, technically we can add the talk right now, because this was the hard part. So you've got a workspace, you've got a library, we get it. We can run those commands, we've got everything together. I can build my library, I can test it, I can go ahead and add some code. So we can end this talk right now, maybe just show you how to actually publish it to NPM, and that's it. But if we're all here and we've got some time, let's actually build something useful, so maybe we'll learn some Angular along the way. I mean, if you like. Who wants to make a shortcut and just publish it to NPM? Raise your hand. Seriously, man? And what about everything else? You're the only one, sorry. That's. But thank you for being honest. We're going to publish it to NPM. Very, very important. Our library currently, you see this library model? We've got a declaration of our component, and we export this component. By exporting this component, we enable other modules to use our component. This is how Angular works. But when you're building a library, that's not enough. So if I'm going to add more components or services or whatever to my library, you've got this API.ts file, and you should also expose the actual class. because that's not enough to just use the component, you need to use the typing. So that's a thing that you need to remember. Beside of that, our library development gonna be just straight Angular. So let's build something useful, hopefully, I don't know. So my magic string library gonna give you a very nice component that enables you to do this. Let's go to my test app. Here you can wrap whatever text that you want to wrap. Let's take something. Let's take don't cry lyrics instead of just lorem ipsum. So my library is going to give you the ability to wrap text, and then it's going to give us a nice input where you can search for certain words and get them highlighted. Sounds good? So I'm going to jump into my library. Quiet. Magic string, library, magic string component. Here it is. And let's start to build something that we can actually use. So if I build a component and I want to wrap another content, I should use ng-content. ng-content gonna enable us to project the content of the wrapped, whatever I want to wrap. All right. So in my use case, I'm going to wrap some text. Now I want to hide this text. I want to manipulate it. So I want to hide the actual content and render something else. So we're going to do something which is pretty much straightforward, because sometimes you just need to think simple. We don't need to take it too far. I'm going to wrap my ng-content with a div. I'm going to give it a reference. Let's call it content. And then, how do I get reference to this? Who knows? Cool. View child, going to give us a reference to content. And what's going to be the type of content? What's going to be the type of content? I can't hear you. No, it's going to be element ref. Quick feedback. Who's seeing this for the first time or learn something new just about this line? All right, we've got some people. Cool. When you query, when you get a reference to something that exists in your template, you don't get a DOM element. You get an object that wraps the DOM element. This element ref created by Angular to wrap it. View child got extra configuration which we're not going to pass, but that's the reason my IDE is shouting at me. Tell me there's 2 arguments you have to pass. That's my TS lint, but I don't want to pass. A bonus question. Who knows what I can do here? A bonus question, and the person that's going to answer right going to get a... It will get a static reference, and even better, I can cast the type. So in some cases, I can read the element ref, but I want to read it, for example, as a view container ref. So it doesn't matter if you're familiar with this or not. The most important thing that I'm trying to communicate with you is that if you use view child, like most of you does, there is extra configurations that you can pass. One of them is static. The other one enables you to override the content. This is very useful when you do a dynamic rendering. You want to get an element ref, you want to read it as a different type, like typecasting, and then to get some extra API. If you find it interesting, on this meetup I had a talk about it, which you can find at AngularNYC YouTube channel. And then you can see live coding of how we work with this and what we can do with this. Let's move forward. I want to keep a reference to the original content. Content. That's going to be a string. I'm going to create, let's call it a controlled controlled content, which is going to be a string. And on ng, when this component init, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say that this controlled content is going to be equal to this original content, which is going to be equal to this. Now let's go to our content element, native element. That's going to return me the actual DOM element. So now I've got text content, which is part of the DOM. So what I did in this line, I just took the text content of whatever you pass in this div, initialize a variable called original content, and along the way initialize a variable called control content. Make sense? Cool. Now I want to hide this original content, so I'm just gonna bind to hidden. That's the beauty in Angular. You can bind to whatever property that you like. Every DOM property got a hidden. I'm gonna use hidden, true. Who used AngularJS before? Raise your hand. Most of us, yeah. So we're all familiar with ngView. So if you look like to the same concept, you just want to hide something, that's the way you do it. There's plenty of other ways to do everything, obviously. All right. So I can hide the original content. I'm going to create another div, and here I'm going to bind to the inner HTML. And I'm going to put my, let's call it the controlled content right here. So that's a nice trick. I'm wrapping everything, I'm hiding the content, and then I'm just, I can modify this content like we're going to do in a second, and then I'll re-render it to the component. Last thing I want to do before we test it, I want to add an input here. And on this input, I want to listen to enter event. So it's going to be key down. How do I listen just for enter? Dot enter. And my ID is nice enough to give me all the event modifier. So I want to listen to key down enter. And I want to mark text. I'm going to pass the event target value. And I don't have this method implemented yet, but if I do this create method, it's just gonna, my ID gonna create me a method on my component class. Disclaimer, I don't get anything from JetBrains, so I'm not trying to sell you the ID. This is an honest user experience that, as you see, I'm very excited to share because I think it's a great integration. Let's log something and test our library. So, gonna open the terminal. I'm gonna run lib build. I'm gonna go back to my example app, which is now refreshed. I'm gonna open the console to make sure that if I type something and hit enter, we got the value, and we're ready to go. So let's just finish this tiny library. We don't need a constructor here. We're not going to use it. What we want to do, first I want to take this controlled content and reset it to the original content. That's the reason I saved this reference. Next, I want to take this control content and I want to take this original content and I'm going to replace I want to replace all the occurrence of the value that you passed and wrap it with something else. So I'm going to use Regex, and I'm not a Regex expert, but I really like to construct Regex like this with the actual constructor, because now I can pass the value and I know that if I pass G, it's going to be global. It's going to find everything and replace whatever you find, the occurrence of the value, replace it. Let's replace it. We just wrap everything with a span. Let's call it mark. And here inside, that's getting too long. Let's try to reformat it so it will be a little bit more friendly. All right. So basically what I'm doing here, every time you're calling, I'm taking the original content, I'm replacing all the occurrence of the value that you provided, and just wrap it with a span with a class. Which means that if I'm gonna come here to my styles and add a class called mark, which gonna have a background color of yellow, matk. This is like we need to translate it to local English. This is how you say mark in Hebrew. It was almost funny, almost. I tried, you know, it's late. I'm doing my best. Trust me. So now hopefully what's going to happen, that every time we click, we're going to replace it, we're going to wrap it with a span. Let's see if it works. So let's do something like U, hit enter, go to my element, go to my uproot, my magic string. I built it, I just built it. And I think I missed something, or there is no U. Or I haven't built it. Other things could happen right now, right here. Yeah, I didn't build it because it's still logging, and I don't have any log there. So it looks like, oh, I hope I'm on the right file and didn't. Yeah, all right. Let's give it another try. Let's see what went wrong. U, enter. Still, it doesn't work. That's interesting. All right, let's try to debug it together and see what's going on here. So I've got everything here. I got a feeling that I'm still going to see this log. Let's see. No, all right. So now I know for sure that everything works beside my library. So we're gonna, yeah.
I think it's because you
let's see.
uppercase Y.
Where?
No, when you type it, you search it.
Which line?
No, run it again.
Textbook. It's just saying your search is case sensitive and you type in capital U.
Oh, all right.
Just type in we.
Yeah, let's give. Yeah, so it works. Thank you. Yeah, it was case sensitive. Yeah. So now every time I'm doing something, I'm just swapping with me. But hey, I defined a class. What's going on? Why? I mean, I've got a class named Mark. What's happening? A bonus question. The person who's gonna answer right for this, not gonna get anything, but we're gonna appreciate his knowledge. No? Another try? Excuse me? No. All right, I'm going to tell you. Yeah, it's something to do with the encapsulation mode. So I need to take my view encapsulation to none to be able to, if that's what you meant, so sorry. Yeah, you were right about it. Let's build a library. If everything works, we're going to publish to NPM and go to ring something together. Let's give it a try. All right, cool. So actually, if you take this idea and just, you know, put a little bit more of like decent code, it's considered to be quite an interesting component. And hopefully, by building something useful together, we learn some new things. Or, I don't know, an approach of how to do things that are not that simple, not that complicated, but in a very straightforward way. And that's end part 2 of this talk, which was let's build something useful. All right? Last time I'm going to ask, just to make sure, how many of you learned at least one thing new from building this component together? All right. We are on the right track. Let's see what's left for me to show you. So we did this, we did some this. Where is my notes? All right. Yeah. It's time to pack our library and use it on another app. Now I'm going to show you some great stuff with npm. So let's start by building our library so we can use it on npm. Now, to build our library and use it on npm, we need to take everything and zip it together to a single file. And npm gives us an API to do it. So if I go ahead and let's revisit my package.json, I'm going to create something that looks like this. Lib package, and I'm going to run, go into the dist folder and run npm pack. I hope that's going to do the trick and I'm not missing everything important. Actually, I think I should do this. Cd, no, it should work. Let's give it a try. So I'm going to run lib package and see what's going to happen. Yeah. Cd dist. Alright, we're going to do it the hard way. It's too late for me. I'm going to cd into dist, and I'm going to run npm pack, which could not install. I missed something, sorry. Let me see what I missed. I'm inside of my dist folder, complete log. I'll give it another second. Let's try. Oh yeah, thank you very much. So I need to enter dist and then enter magic string where the actual library is, and then run npm pack. And npm pack gonna take everything and just create a single file right here. You see this magic string, tgz, everything packed together.